All right. Well, welcome everyone. Hi, Sina.
Hello,
Haven't seen
everyone.
you in a while.
Yeah,
We have a lot of content to get through. So hopefully we get through all of it. We have a lot of experience to share with you. And we not only want to share with you how to crack the code of data to AI based on our learning so far, but also show you how you can do that with the technology that we have been building. Of course, our technology sits on top of the shoulder of giants, a lot of data infrastructure technology that already exists. So we can kind of bring these concepts to life for you. All right, I have a few slides to share, so I'm going to share them and then just jump in. And what is loading, I think it would be good to just take a minute and acknowledge the context within which enterprises, particularly data leaders, are operating within. The AI pressure is very real and has just changed the job of CDOs. More than half of CDOs recently changed their title and their charter expanded to AI. So they're not only responsible for the data, but also responsible for data for AI and AI itself. And this is not an easy task. And I think the writings of how challenging this is already on the walls. If you search LinkedIn, you will see that more than 150 CDOs of Fortune 500 companies have changed seats. They either been hired or have left the position and have left the job. The the ambitions of companies are not trivial either. When we talk to a lot of organizations, we talk to many CDOs. They often reach out to us because they heard us talking about AI data products or autonomous data products, and they share their 5-year strategy with us because that 5-year strategy is founded on kind of connected tissue between data and AI. That's where we work in. And I want you to, and I shared here on the screen some of the kind of those strategic goals that we see shared with us, and I chose to share the ones. It's the ones that has been published publicly by Gartner, BCG, and McKinsey. And I want you to take a minute and just look at these numbers and contextualize it for the organization that you're in, and see how dramatically each of these numbers is going to change your work and your organization's performance. 70% of employee time is going to be automatable. 70% of what we're doing right now is going to be automated. 40% of part of our job that we feel is low value across workforce is going to be replaced. And business is going to move faster, at least 50%. I think one of these numbers is actually low. 40% of enterprise apps being agentic, I feel that's a very low bar. I anticipate it's actually going to be a higher bar and we can achieve a lot more. But this is a dramatic change, and that's why the job is really hard. So for these targets to become reality, there's a missing link. There's a missing link between the ambitions of AI, everything that we can do in that top layer of LLMs performing tasks and making decisions automatically, and the bottom layer, which is the data that is sprawling in the organization, structured data, unstructured data in the warehouse, in the lakehouse, in the SaaS applications, and bridging that gap with a layer that guides the agents to discover the data that is relevant to them, to answer the questions that they have to answer before they can plan and perform a task, that is safe for them to use, semantically understandable, legible, and doing that fast. We've got to change our cycle time, right? There's a mismatch of cycle time. At the top, you can write a few prompts and build an application. And at the bottom, you need months and months of data to get that, months and months of time, calendar time, to get that data ready. So that missing link needs to kind of not only bridge the technology gap, but needs to bridge that cycle gap. So to meet those ambitions and to bridge that gap, we hear 3 questions. Number 1, how can we turn fragmented enterprise data into AI-ready data products? Number two, not only how we can do it, but also how can we do that fast? Today, it takes us, Fortune 500 take about, average of 18 months, average of 1 million and 1.5 million to get every single data asset to the action layer, to the application layer. How do we do that 20 times faster or 50 times faster? And how do we do that? By removing the organizational bottlenecks and empower everyone in the organization to be able to share and discover AI-ready data products. So these are not trivial asks. These are not trivial technical and cultural problems to solve. So we're going to give it our best attempt to share what we have learned so far, what we have done so far, what we have seen implemented, and also some of the anti-patterns that we've seen. We don't pretend that we have to crack the code on all of this, but we are at the beginning of the journey that has been quite impactful, and we want to share with you. So let's just start with number one, AI-ready data products. What does that mean? Ultimately, the goal is to connect the full, domain context, the business context and business domains. If you're in pharmaceutical, the domains of your, drug discovery, drug commercialization, drug marketing, connect all of that to your marketing assistant agent or to your sales agent or to your, agents that are LLMs that are helping you discover drugs. And how do you do that safely and reliably? Failure patterns right now are yet another cycle of replatforming. I cannot emphasize enough the number of shifts in clouds, shift in data platforms, data infrastructure, storage that is happening at the same time. We don't think that's a problem. All of this technology and infrastructure are incredibly powerful. Yes, there are some better than the others, but ultimately they are powerful for the job that they do. So moving data, reshuffling data, or trying to kind of annotate the data dumps with a semantic layer, those are anti-patterns or failure patterns that we see. So to solve this problem of how do we build AI-ready data products, we have to kind of get a good handle of what it is and what it isn't. So we have 5 dimensions that we think are critical to be implemented as the key characteristics of that middle layer, right? That squishy layer between the data infrastructure and where the data is and data being processed and the applications. The very first one that I think is really key, we did a whole webinar about this, I think a couple of months back in March. So please, if you want to go deeper on this, go watch that webinar, is this idea of that layer needs to have an explicit semantic semantic definition first that defines the ground truth of the data, as opposed to a semantic that has been extrapolated from the data dumps that we've had. So that when we look for data and look for quarterly revenue, we know that, okay, this data product is providing quarterly revenue, but the quarters are actually fiscal quarters or calendar quarters. What's the difference? So that semantic first and semantic infused data and definitions are really key. The second piece is this data that is being defined around the domain context and bounded context of a domain. This concept of bounded context and domain definitions and domain boundaries have been well established, but never really practiced and implemented in the data space, because data space or structural definition of the data has been defined to work with query optimization, right? It's been defined to create all sorts of 5-6 way joins across a large body of data and running queries fast. And that doesn't naturally lend itself to designing this layer of AI-ready data products, this layer of context around really business domain itself, and not a fragmented context, the full business context, all the information about the documentation about that piece of business, the data itself, the definitions that's used and the language that is used in that business. All of those need to come and be organized around domain context. So again, AI data products do that within the context of that data product itself. How do we get to that context? How do we get to that data? Through stable APIs, not schemas. Today, dashboards are the primary usage of the data and the dashboards, they need schemas and they need access to tables. So that has become, schema has become the primary interface for talking to the data products, and that needs to change. And we need to have, again, set of a stable business bounded APIs. And then the two other operational characteristics are about the speed and reliability. Getting to these data products cannot take months. Agents won't wait for that, or business won't wait for that. Because if you feel business was moving fast today and data wasn't catching up, we've got to rethink that again, because business is going to move much faster than before, and needs to move much faster than before because of all of those efficiencies that we just see on the first slide. So the data products and AI data products need to be moving as fast as that. Finally, none of this is going to be reliable and acceptable, frankly, by enterprise if they can't be dynamically and continuously, and in technical term, computationally governed. So again, be able to verify this data product computationally at runtime and continuously and autonomously. That's another key prospect. And this is where I think that the fundamental thinking pattern that we have from the data perspective needs to break. Needs to break from thinking about data as a schema and bits and bytes to data as services, applications that are running and sharing API and sharing their context runtime. All right, so we have a very opinionated perspective on this. What does AI-ready data product look like in implementation? It's a running process. It has a lot of different information that it encapsulates and it maintains and it governs at runtime, including the business context, including the operational context. I'm going to pause here. We will share the slides if you want to go through the content of this, but I want to walk you through a scenario to see how an AI-ready data product, and particularly as we have defined it within Nextdata, can allow agents to do their job reliably. And again, when you think about agents and these AI-ready data products, agents has a life cycle. When we develop an agent, whether it's a generic agent or a particular one, whether you're just connecting your call at desktop, or whether you have a harness that is defining a particular intent with a particular set of guidelines, there's a process of providing the intent, LLMs evaluating the intent from the prompts, discovering what they need, what information, what APIs they need to be able to get the job done, be able to orchestrate those, get to those APIs, answer the questions, and execute that plan. And there, with Nextdata, at least with our implementation, there is a process that we enable from the discovery to execution with full context that data products provide. So Sina, I'm going to hand it to you to show this in action.
For sure. So I'm hoping to demystify a lot of the terms that we just talked about in the slides. I want to look at an example and explain AI readiness through the lens of a single example. We're talking about a fictional company of an e-commerce retailer. Imagine that. We're going to look at a single product. There are different ways to create these products for different people. If you're a data scientist, or if you're a data engineer, or if you're a governance engineer, we have, over the years, we have developed different interfaces for different personas to build them. One of the personas that we run across a lot is data engineers, and the example I'm going to show today is going to focus a little bit on that, because I think it kind of shows the details a little bit more clear at the very raw level. I'm assuming you guys can see my screen or not yet. Oh, there we go. So you can see, let's build one of these together from scratch, and see what it looks like. We are looking at the sales data product. As you can see, it's a simple Git-backed source code that you can see on the left side. The bread and butter of what makes the product is this specification file, which packages the different aspects of our opinionated framework into a product. You see things about metadata of a product. You see a packaging of the transformation. So in this example, the transformation is happening on a Spark job, but you can think of This can be a job on a Snowflake, or it can be a job on Redshift or BigQuery. We have built that abstraction out. Where the data is coming from, the inputs of how the data comes into this product, which later on becomes the lineage at the product level, and how the data is being exposed to different consumers. In this example, for this demo, this product is being exposed on Databricks and on Snowflake and on vector embeddings on Pinecone. When we have these products, as an engineer, you can launch them, and these products get launched as a running application, as Zhamak was mentioning. And from a UI perspective, from a consumer perspective, they look something like this. This is the interface of the UI that shows what that product is. This is the same product that we were looking at the source code. And when, as you can see, it knows information about itself, like the description and what it is. But most importantly, what are the semantics? So this product has 4 semantic concepts that it's trying to convey to the consumer. Used to be humans, now it's mostly agents. It's about velocity, products, news documents, trending sales. And for each of these, it has the linking of the semantics about what are these concepts across the company. Specifically, these semantics are storage agnostic. If you are coming from a Snowflake world or a Databricks world or Redshift world, you probably have seen similar ideas that are very storage specific. You can define comments on columns and models inside each of these technologies. The main point here is that data products need to be storage agnostic, so that when we are talking about a glossary term that is for product name, or a semantic relationship about a reference, for example, a product code that can go across different parts of the organization, we can create these links between them. In this example, product ID in the sales context, in sales domain, is related to a product catalog or for a product code in a product catalog data product, which might be in a completely different semantic context or in different domain even. How do these semantic concepts get exposed to the consumer? This product, as we saw, exposes them into 4 different ways for consumption. It can be through Databricks, it can be through Snowflake or vector embedding. It's also MCP and AI ready, and we're going to see how that will change the agent workflow in a second. It used to be the case that a lot of these API exposures was for application builders. So imagine you have an internal React app or a Power Platform app that's trying to fetch some data for sales or marketing. But now the API has also been exposed as MCP endpoints so that agents can talk to them. So how does this show from a consumption perspective? So if you are a consumer and you're trying to figure out what sales data is about, classically you used to open these products in BI tool sets. So for example, I'm using Superset here, which is as an example of a BI, but it can be Looker or Power BI or whatever. And you can see the same data, the same semantic. Now I'm looking at it from a classical BI angle. Or if you're coming from a data scientist and machine learning engineering that you're more familiar with notebooks, you can also open the same concept in a notebook experience and connect to that data through a notebook experience. And now recently, with all this AI readiness concept, you can also open it in chat interfaces. In the demo today, I'm showing it on cloud desktop. Most of our customers are on Microsoft Copilot or Perplexity or a bunch of different ones. It doesn't really matter. The idea is the same concepts can be exposed to the agents. So this is the exemplar questions that the creator of this product is asking as a guide to the agent and as a guide to the human who is sitting behind the agent, that these are the kind of questions that you can start asking about sales data, for example. And this is an example of like doing summary per channel, per region. And if you look at how it's actually working behind the scene, it doesn't go directly to the data product first. It is doing some tool discovery, because if you think about it, agents don't have this context, right? You have to fetch the context from the mesh first, understand what is available around sales and channels and regions, and based on that, route that call specifically to this specific data product. When we talk about AI readiness, one of the big things is the semantic. So what does semantic mean? And we can ask questions around, for example, what are the glossary terms associated with sales inside data product? I'm using a text to speech to text tool here, so you don't have to type. So I can ask this kind of question, and it starts going through the product details and tries to fetch the different terms that are associated with that product. See that it's finding glossary terms. For us, even glossary terms and those semantics are also exposed as data products. So if you look at this lineage graph on the right side, this product is associated with an e-commerce glossary, which is a specific type of product which gathers the information about the terms and ontologies of the e-commerce domain. Because as you can imagine, in a big organization, different domains might have a different ontologies, and the challenge becomes, okay, what does this concept, the same semantic, means in different contexts? For example, a customer or a party or a user is a classical example of this. You can see the relationship in the visualization of a product, but now chats can also fetch and understand what are the different dimensions and different semantics that are associated with those. So later on, when we ask a specific question around, for example, what are the sales on Q2, it can use those semantic concepts so that it asks a specific question. So you see, this is a fiscal year of this company is a bit different. It's not a calendar year. And because these terms have been defined for the product, it knows that when it's trying to do a Q2 result, it shouldn't do April to June. It should do May to July, for example. Most of the conversation today so far has been about a single product. So we're talking about at this level, what do we have and what can we talk about the semantic models of this product. But you can also think about, if you zoom out, what will happen if you go up a level and see what happens if different parts of the organization also define their data as products with the same interface, regardless of what technology they are on. They can stay on the existing technology that we have already invested on. What that universe looks like. So these are these organic shapes that you're seeing are the different domains and subdomains across the company. So you see finance and product and Amazon and supply chain in this example. And when you zoom in, you will see the data products that each of these teams are exposing. Some of this might be on AWS, some of this might be on Azure, some of them might be on Snowflake or Databricks. But the semantics and the links around, these are the lineage data, like the data consumption and production between two different teams, or even at one lower layer, which becomes a bit ugly and unreadable. But you can see the actual semantic links between these different concepts across the organization, where the semantics that the AI really needs in order to figure out what these concepts are, so that it can answer the questions more intelligently. We're going to talk more about building these things and how much assistance we are getting from the platform, so that we don't have to hand roll these things by hand in the next demo. But I'm going to stop here and give it back to Zhamak.
All right. Thanks, Sina. So that was kind of problem number one, right? What is AI ready data product? How does that bridge the gap between data and AI? The second challenge, if you can show my slides, the second question that was asked was, how do I speed up? Okay, so if this layer of, kind of AI ready data products is a missing layer that provides the context and the data around domains, like what Sina showed, a particular domain bounded context stuff, insights into sales based on the influence of news. If that's kind of what we're looking for and the relationship between them, how do we get there really, really fast? Of course, the first answer that comes to mind is, well, just throw AI at it, right? And throw AI at it to boost productivity. And while that's half the answer, it's not the full answer. And I think some of the failure patterns I'm seeing is that we are so reluctant to reimagine data management, and it is because it's really hard. It's really hard to restructure work, and lack of restructuring work, I think, is causing is not giving us that kind of escape velocity that we need from the legacy data management. The other challenge that I see is that there is no standardization to guide agentic workforce. So let's look at the problem. Like, why is it so slow? One of the reasons, and I think one of the key reasons, is the systematic complexity that data management has, or data value pipeline or supply chain has. So we have imagined data management for an era that we needed to build dashboards. And we needed to model data in a way that dashboards can do all sorts of weird and wonderful joins and so on. And we do that in big warehouses. So data management is structured around that. Well, I've got to get the data, I've got to get, ingest it, and then I've got to model it. And that modeling phase takes quite a bit of time. Then I've got to store it, and that's not the end of the story. I need to add metadata to it. I need to add semantic to it. And today, the new buzzword, I need to add a context graph to it. And then I need to provision access to it. And somehow I need to govern it after the fact, measure its quality after it was produced, and so on and so forth. So months of manual handoff between a fragmented technology stitched together. And one solution could be keep doing all of the things you've been doing, don't change your process, and throw agents at it to maybe automate individual steps. But that is not going to give us incremental gain, because the kind of gain that is exponential, right? That's the kind of gain we need. So the 3-move strategy for speeding data to AI, in our experience, includes these 3 key decisions that you need to make as an enterprise leader. First, you have to make a decision about standardizing and abstracting complexity. So standardizing an interface and abstracting your kind of data mess in a way that then it can give agility to and predictability to agents to create that abstraction, to manage that abstraction, to build data products based on that abstraction. Second, you've got to make a decision that out of the sprawl of data assets that you have, I mean, data warehousing creates a lot of intermediary tables that are not useful to the fundamental and questions that need to be answered by agents or by business. So you have to decide which of these data assets I'm going to productize. And finally, then you have to use AI and have an AI technology that allows you to bootstrap this AI-ready data products from the selected assets. So how does it look in reality? You have data assets that are ultimately the sources of your data. So they're either on your Salesforce or, I don't know, HubSpot, or maybe they've been ingested and they're sitting in a warehouse or lakehouse as kind of that raw data layer. And then you've got a kind of a lot of tables, ancillary tables in the middle, to aggregate those, to normalize those, to harmonize those. And then you have the data sets that are more consumer facing and designed for business needs. So we have done all of this. We have productized with AI all of these. And from our experience, the money and effort that you spent is better spent on the source where the real signals live, and it's better or spent on the destination consumer aligned kind of data products, and leave that messy middle. And the reason for that is that messy middle actually will go away soon. Maybe not today, but it will go away, because that logic of stitching the right data together or planning and execution of APIs to get the pieces of data and combine it is very likely going to move to the client side with LLMs doing it. Right now, it's probably far from reality because the context window and those sort of challenges, but it's very likely that they're able to, they have the cognition power of combining information rather than we try to do that up front. So I want to pass to Sina to kind of give you two flavors of building these AI-ready data products by first restructuring and creating that standard that Sina just showed, and second, then throwing AI power at it.
Yeah, for sure. And this is a very fast-moving space, to be honest. I think over the past 2 years, since the ChatGPT moment, we have maybe iterated on this 3 times, and it keeps changing. So this is the current version of today. And so far, it has there's 2 paths of the offerings that we are working on with our design partner and our customers. One path is what we call Nextdata, that we'll see on the screen in a second, that is a first-party AI coding solution. So this is embedded in every single part of the product experience. It is ships with the product. It has our own customized models and fine-tuned models that are designed for that experience. And then there is what we call Nextdata Pro, which is designed for usage in the editors and tooling that you're currently used to, like the Cloud Code and Cursor and Codex. And it's a curated set of MCP endpoints and skills that have been curated by our field engineers. Because as we are working with customers, we keep going through these micro learnings as we go, and we are trying to codify those learnings through these skills. I'm assuming, okay, you can see my screen now. You see the AI assisted development. This is the Nextdata one. I'm going to show a little bit of this and a little bit of this just to show what's behind the scene. So let's start with this one. Right now, when you go to our platform, we have the Nextdata. Should we start a clear session? You can start building data products. Why did we start here? We start here because a lot of the customers that we go through have the problem of 0 to 1. I have a bunch of data already on Jira and Confluence and ServiceNow and operational databases and Postgres, and I want to quickly come and get from 0 to 1, and 1 is not one product. 1 is a set of product across different domains, so that I can get to a view like this as quick as possible, so that I can connect my agents, so that I can go faster. But the idea is that it's an AI-assisted copilot for a low-code customer who doesn't want to deal with the actual coding that much. It will guide you through an opinionated framework again, like similar to the spec file that we saw 15 minutes ago. It guides you through building models, inputs, expectation, promises, like different aspects of a AI-ready product. You can point it to existing data sets. So in this example, I'm going to point it to the data dump on S3, but you can think of the same flow for, I want to point it to an existing CDC data dump or a Fivetran dump or the actual APIs that are upstream from a product. And it has enough tools and skills to understand what the shape of that product is, gather the models. It is also, because I am logged in as this user, it knows it's heavily templated, so it knows the templates of my domain. Because again, think about what will happen in a big enterprise. If you're in the marketing team, you're probably on Snowflake, and that's the tooling that you're used to, and the administrator of this platform has already templated that for you. And it will guide you through understanding that data. As you can see, it already understood some of the glossary terms that are associated with these concepts. It's still heavily co-piloted. You need to review it, and it will ask you, are these the right glossary terms? Are they relevant or not? And it will step by step try to develop this. And it's just, for example, it says, no, I think sales is enough. We can probably start having some names to it. We can call this sales test May 21st. And it is going to step by step getting it ready until you have the inputs and outputs, and you can start to launch this product. These products are probably going to be very immature when you launch them, because they are very basic. Again, this is solving the 0 to 1 problem. You will see in the next demo that when these products get launched, they have a bunch of warnings, a bunch of policy problems, a bunch of data quality problems that then later on someone needs to come and curate through the governance team or through the enablement team, or hopefully in an ideal world to the actual domain team who is very close to the data and understands where the sales data from Salesforce is exactly coming from, what are the nuances about the definition of these fields, so that it has a good consumer experience. Later on in our roadmap, we are embedding this Next AI chat into different aspects of the product. So we're going to see that when you are on the data product details page, or if you're on the mesh page. So this is going to grow as we go. This is probably good enough to start launching it, just to get a sense of an example. The other one that we want to talk about is the Next AI Pro. Again, this is a set of skills that an MCP endpoints to make for a more pro user. You can use it through your cloud or codex, and it will give you a couple of skills and tools and commands, such as, for example, Nexty. Did I launch it correctly? Oh, I'm in the wrong folder. PG. Sample data. Yeah, so you see it has a bunch of Nexty Bootstrap and Nexty setup that helps you do the same thing, but in a more advanced use case. So if you start this thing, it will ask you, what is your starting point? Are you starting from a point of, I already have a couple of ETL pipelines running, or do I have a set of data sets available? So you see existing data or existing source code or other data products. I have already packaged different products across the domains, and I'm trying to bootstrap a product using from those products in a safe, testable, reproducible manner. The point being, we used to create these products like this by hand, letter by letter, for a long time. We had a bunch of templates to make it go a bit smoother. We don't do that anymore. This has completely moved. You're either using Nextdata AI embedded, or you're using Nextdata AI Pro to build these products much faster. Over to you, Zhamak.
All right, thanks, Sina. I just want to double click on one thing. The reason, having skills or, agent skills or tools is feasible and it's reliable is because we have abstracted a lot of disparate systems and concerns into the data product. The reason that works is because the agent is dealing with one simple interface, that data product specification, and we, the platform, the kernel of that data product, is abstracting, there is pipelines that need to be executed, or there are terminologies that need to be managed, and there are contracts that need to be imposed. There's no go manage that catalog and that pipeline and that other 5 other tools. So that's a major abstraction that is needed, and we have to keep lifting up this abstraction to give more determinism to what sits above it, right? The agents. So I'm going to now move to the last part. We have 2 other sections. We're going to go fast. There's a lot of content to get through. If you can show my slides, please. So the last question that CDOs ask is, how do I do all of this at scale? There is a deep organizational scar around centralization of IT, and then centralization of data. And I'm sure it will be one around centralization of AI in the future. But that's kind of where organizations are. Let me do this, what I just did, what we showed you, but let us do it at scale. And for that to happen, to enable organizations to be able to build data products and increase that organizational throughput, a few things need to happen, right? That federated operating model hinges on some sort of a governance that is actually imposable and doesn't get in the way. it doesn't create bottlenecks. We call that computational governance, computational governance, both at the local level, like at the business unit level, at the data product development level, but as also at the global level. And for that to be possible, again, standardization is part of the business. Like that abstraction is really important. Anti-patterns that we see, data platform teams are still stuck in the world of self-serve, meaning, oh, I give you an access to catalog, or I give you access to pipeline management from Snowflake, or I give you an access to, a bucket. Those are too low-level primitives for people to be able to build AI-ready data products. So again, that elevating that abstraction is very key. In terms of the blueprint for decentralization or federation, I think this is the moment that I say I told you so. This is a blueprint. This is a blueprint that we created. Like I wrote a while back. I think it is still relevant. It was written to be agnostic to technology, but I think there is a key event, a critical event that has just happened, and that's AI. And that AI has really opened up the business imagination in terms of how much self-serve capability is possible. I've heard stories of, leaders using Claude Code to build their own dashboards, but they still don't have the data to put behind it. So we are really moving from this world of federation being a theater that we wish to play in real world to make it real. One of the key concerns, there are two key concerns from technical perspective. One is this multimodality, like embracing multimodality. I think it's almost impossible to imagine to give autonomy to people, but then force them to use one single stack all the way through. Yes, we have to standardize some things, right, to be able to have that interoperability and not everybody doing its own thing and in their own silo. But we also have to give choice and diversity. And choice and diversity happens at two layers of this stack. Happens at the top, which is I'm an analyst. I want to use these data products for my dashboard. Same semantic, different modality. Or I'm an agent and I need to be able to answer a question about the customer support task that I have. So at the top of this hourglass, we need to support multimodality. At the bottom of this hourglass, in terms of, okay, where does the data sit? Yes, we all want to put data in one place, but how long is it going to take to do that? And is this a futile effort? Because the moment you put it in one place, is it sprouted in other places? And how about cross-organizational boundaries for data sharing? So that bottom layer, they also need to proliferate and allow multiple. And most importantly, computational governance. How do we give local power, but also have some governance on top? So to bring these concepts to life, I hand it back to Sina to show the level of self-serve that expected and how this multimodality computational governance can be imposed.
Yeah, so we talked about products in isolation. We also showed a map of what that would look like if different parts of the organization uses a standard. If you can see my screen right now, you will see each of these hexagons, which were representing the data products, have this green and yellow and red on top of them, which is a summary of their quality and compliance. We didn't talk about quality today, but we have covered it in our previous demos, where we talk about data contracts across different boundaries. So for example, if this product is using product from this one, what's the current handshake on volume, on completeness, on schema? I'm not going to go into the quality and contracts today. I'm going to focus on the compliance piece. So one of the things that products expose is, for example, if we go back to the sales product, you have a series of policies that are applied to this product. These are not managed by the product producers. The policies are things that are pieces of computationally run software that get defined at the mesh level or at the domain level or at the subdomain level and get applied to a criteria of a product. For example, you can define policies that define rules around data quality, or define rules around guarantees of the output, or cost of ingress, or data retention policies. We come up out of the box with a series of a bunch of these products already out of the box. But we have a SDK for you to build the domain-specific, company-specific policies as code that runs on these products. And the two things that will happen when you do that, one is, okay, at the single product level, you can see if this is green or red. Are we in compliance or out of compliance? And again, it can be about HIPAA, or it can be about your GXP, or it can be about your retention policies. This can be things that used to be a bunch of documents that the governance team would send out and say, please do this, and then only check after the fact a year later when you're in production to check if you're compliant by them or not. But if you zoom out and see what happens if these policies go across the domains and subdomains and the whole mesh, you get to views that are about the health of the mesh, on the quality, and also on the policies. One of the popular insights at the mesh level has been about coverage by the PII policies. For example, we have a PII policy that says if the data product has PII data, it should not get exposed to any LLMs. And if it does get exposed, then there's a consequence to it. You can say stop it, or warning, or terminate, completely remove it from the mesh. Don't make it accessible for any consumer until the compliance issue is resolved. And because we have built all of these Lego pieces on the data product together, now you can see a aggregated view and insight of what that would look like at the mesh level. We should do a separate demo online around how to build these computational policies. It's a little bit more technical. It gets into the SDKs and how to build these with engineering, governance engineering team, which we don't have time to do today, but for a later time. Did we cover it enough, Zhamak? I know.
We just scratched the surface, but I think it should maybe get somewhere. I think in the future demos we will show the role of a platform owner or somebody who's rolling out this kind of standardizations and the data products to the market. Okay, I'm going to wrap us up. A few slides on what are your alternatives and how do you get started. So this kind of idea, if you can show my slides, please, speed to AI. So we want to go, so what did we want? We want to have this AI-ready data products, AI-ready layer, context layer, whatever we call it, so that we can bridge the gap between our data to AI. We want that fast. We want that at scale, right? We want to federate that. So there are really, at the macro level, three options. You have the option of going in and partnering with one vendor and go all the way into that vendor and have that fast native experience. So all of the capabilities we discuss, like in some shape or form, not exactly the same, but some shape or form is possible if you go all into Snowflake or all in Databricks or all in Fabric. Or again, there are missing pieces for sure because the philosophies are different and the origin of those platforms are different. But more or less, you can kind of achieve that. And that's a very valid strategy if your organization can standardize the whole organization, the whole enterprise on one stack. And we've seen that strategy executed for smaller, kind of less federated, less diverse type of businesses. The second strategy is do it yourself. That, okay, you accept that you will have different technologies because one technology is great for a set of use cases, not so great for other use cases. Or you want to accept it's going to take so much time to move everything into one place. So you're going to accept this multimodality and multi-stack, and then you have to build a do-it-yourself integration layer on top to build that standardization and that semantic layer. The third alternative is what we've been working on, right? Is to really bring all these learnings of do-it-yourself. Sina and I were doing the do-it-yourself, frankly, for years. And then we realized this is just nonsense. It has to be commoditized and just, think about technologies that help you to bootstrap that do-it-yourself layer and not pay that operational cost. If you want to get started, you need to think about kind of the impact of this layer. What do you expect for this layer to do? I think that the really 5 impacts you should be looking for is that zero replatforming. Don't make me move my data to yet another stack. Don't make me move my compute from, I don't know, SQL to something else, or from Python to SQL. Give me that 50, 20, 50x acceleration in production, and production to consumption all the way. Not just I've produced it and it's landed somewhere. No, it's discovered, it's used, production to action. Be able to get that governance as code natively built in, and enabling not just one type of users in your organization, but enabling different types of humans that do different type of work, analytics or ML. And now these days, most importantly, agents, which work very, very differently, as we just saw. So these are the characteristics that layer must give you, and consider that when you evaluate different choices that you have. And when you get excited in this new way of working, this data product oriented way of working, you need to have a disciplined phased into execution. We partner with our customers to execute this, and particularly help them in that incubation phase. But you first need to build a sandbox to actually bring this new operating model to life in a way that you can feel it and touch it. I cannot emphasize enough the inertia and calcification of data management in organization based on pipelines, based on data modeling for warehouse, based on catalogs. These are concepts that have been around for a long time, and you've got to break them. And to break them, you have to show something. So that kind of proof of concept, proof of value, and then be able to incubate that fast, maybe for, I don't know, a handful, 30, 100 of these data products. And once you've done that, and once you've done that with those leading business units, then you think about, let me operationalize it, let me integrate it into my audit process and access approval process and all of these other enterprise processes that are in place. And most importantly, customize that self-serve experience. Like what Sina showed with Nextdata, we actually customize that experience for different customers because they have a slightly different persona. They have, in sales, the sales business people build these data products differently than marketing because the origin of the data is different, the workflows are different. Then customize that self-serve AI kind of co-pilots that you have to be able to enable self-serve and move out. Like move out as in, your partner or the platform team really can move out of the way for domains to own the process end to end. If you want to learn more, if you want to check what we've built out, if you want to work with us running one of these kind of transformation projects, there's a barcode here, or email us at hello@nextdata.com. We have a couple of minutes to maybe quickly answer some questions from the audience. Sina, shall you take one and I take one?
Sorry, I have been typing away on the keyboard on the answers. But yeah, let's go through one of them.
All right. There are a couple of maybe easy ones I can get. I'm going to cheat and get the easy ones.
Seems like Cornelia selected one, right? On the screen.
Oh, yeah. What do you do if you want to have agents access the data you're using in dashboards? Yeah. So if you remember, I showed 3 general buckets of data. There's like the source data, whether it's like source that is landed somewhere or a source that is still in the source, like behind Salesforce, or is landed from Salesforce somewhere in a bucket or in a warehouse. So it's the source data. Source data means that it represents the domain language, the domain concept and context that source embodies, right? In sales team, Salesforce has a different set of languages. So that's what source means. And then you have the integrations and aggregates in the middle, and then you have the dashboard-oriented data sets. So data sets and data that sits behind in databases that reports connect to. So what you're asking is, okay, can I connect my agents to the data behind the dashboards or the dashboard itself? And that's, yeah, absolutely, you can do that. I think one way to do that is encapsulate those dashboards and that data behind those dashboards as data products, right? That describe the semantic that was behind the dashboard, and then connect the agents to them. I don't know whether like kind of you connect you, and I see that as a use case. There's a very common use case right now, whether you literally connect it to the graphs of a dashboard, probably not. You connect it to the data that is representing the dashboard. Sina, you take that one.
Yeah, so most of our customers are on Azure and AWS. We have some GCP native, but very few. And almost every single one are in one or both of Snowflake and Databricks. So we have been, most of we call them drivers, the integration points on the compute and storage. And the ones that are at the very mature level are the Snowflake and Databricks one is the main majority of the stacks that we are working on these days, especially because of a type of customers that we usually work with, which are usually Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies who have the scale and the federation and the need for multi-cloud, multi-computer storage situations.
Yeah, and then we have a sprawl of like kind of drivers for other technology you will see on our website. I think there's Redshift and EMR and just like different compute and storage, but the three clouds, or BigQuery, a few others.
Mm-hmm. The next one is about the value of decentralization ownership, especially when it comes to semantic definition. Zhamak, do you want to take that?
Sure. I think it's, again, we're not, decentralization and centralization, I think two sides of the same coin. We use the word standardization, but what are standards? Standards are centralized. So for example, in the case that Sina showed, so let me just maybe put that in an example. When you decentralize definitions or decentralize semantic modeling, what it means is that you allow teams to use the language and to use the constructs that is meaningful to those domains. So if I'm in marketing, I will call someone, I don't know, a prospect, and it means something for me. Or I use the word top of funnel, right? So I use marketing language. And if I'm in a supply chain, maybe I'm referring to the same person that is a prospect or a customer, but it use a different name. I use the name destination or target. So I think in our philosophy is that we should allow domains to define, to use the vocabulary that is meaningful to that domain in that bounded context. However, what Sina showed as links, and I thought there was like a very kind of busy diagram of links, we should be able to define some of these terms globally, and these local definitions can refer to that global definition and say, oh, we use the term prospect, but prospect means here's the definition, and that can be defined within the domain, or it can inherit from a more global one. So there's different layers of definition, and we should be able to refer to this prospect is actually, you know, a customer in this other domain. So both need to coexist for the system to have an equilibrium, so that an agent with no context, no human context that we have between our ears, can come in and say, I've been given a question around supply chain, and be able to traverse and find the relevant information, even though if they're not called the same thing. Sina, anything else? Because you worked on that feature quite a bit.
No, most of the time in practice, the semantic definition across domains start emerge first. Even though some central governance team will say, no, we have the definition across the company. In reality, it's better to emerge first, and then think of it like the old Twitter checkbox, the blue check mark. At some point, the governance team can come and say, okay, this is the one that we're going to use as the de facto standard across the company, and put a checkbox around it as the official definition.
All right. So Backstage just told us, let's wrap up. It was great to connect with everyone wherever you joined us, LinkedIn, and with Backstage. And there were questions around, do we share? We usually write a blog post with the slides in the blog post, and also share the recording. So hopefully we get this to you on LinkedIn channel. Follow us there, and spread the news and spread the content. We love to hear back. Any challenges, any questions, please engage with us.
Thanks for your time, everyone.